At Center for Spiritual Living Beaumont, we believe in spiritual living. Above all else, it is a philosophy that teaches us how to think and not what to think. We invite everyone to practice this philosophy by living in principle. We believe that God is all there is, and each person's relationship to God is a personal one. Every person, place, and thing, and all the space in between is not only an expression of God, but God itself. All love, peace, and beauty that is God exists within each person right now. Together we are all connected as one. Our faith allows us to apply this philosophy to our lives in every moment of every day. As we live in love, we see love revealed and flowing through the world around us. We act as citizens of this spiritual community at all times. This is how we think. We believe in God, we believe in ourselves, and we believe in you because we believe in spiritual living. We are the Center for Spiritual Living Beaumont.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living here in Beaumont. We're so glad you came. You're always welcome, and we just want you to come whenever you can come. In fact, I'd like to see you every day, every Sunday and every day. For first-time visitors, there's a packet over here to my left in the back, and it's a welcome packet, and you're sure welcome to pick that up. And then if you have any questions, just go ahead and catch one of us and see if we can answer those questions. You know, and after service, we have a fellowship and a meal in Carter Hall, so we want everybody to stay for that. And today I think it's pizza and a whole lot of other good stuff, so yeah, make sure you stay. Pizza. You remember, hearing impaired. So if we can read our statement together, here it is. CSLB is an inclusive and transformative community of spiritual practice. And then we have some announcements. The first one is the Good Grief, and that's the support group that Reverend Michael has started when he first came here. It's well received, and it's not for anything special. If you're just in need of some sacred speaking, feeling, and letting it out, well, let's come to that. It's just not loss and dying. But that's going to be every Thursday from 1 to 2:30 p.m. And just remember, it's more than just loss of a loved one. It's for you. It's for you. And then the other one that's coming up is our interfaith Seder, and that's going to be on Monday, and that's from 3:30 to 4:30. And it's CSLB will be hosting the Interfaith Model Seder. Enjoy a taste of traditional Passover foods and a touch of Seder teaching together with family and friends. So we'll be there about 3 o'clock, and there's a donation, a suggested donation of at least $10. And there's a bonus baked chicken dinner afterwards, okay? We need reservations today because it happens tomorrow. So if you have any questions about that, just see me, and we'll see if we can get them straight, okay? And then we have a new, our Clockwork Mind coming up. And I just saw it on the bulletin board, and I asked him what this is all about, and I haven't gotten the answer yet, but it says, Becoming a Conscious Receiver. So that's a workshop from 12 to 1:30, and that's on May 5th. So come and find out what it is. He's such a great teacher. I love it. I go to everything. And then on Wednesday, the 8th, we have our movie and a meal, and that starts at 5 o'clock. And this time, the movie is going to be Jonathan Livingston Seagull and a spaghetti dinner. And that's from 5 to like 8 p.m. And again, if you've seen that movie many times, many years ago, the way he explains or summarizes or gets a discussion going is fabulous. So please come and check that out. We have a video.
Seder means order and is also the name of the ritual meal eaten during the Jewish holiday Passover. Passover celebrates the Jewish people's escape from slavery in Egypt as told in Exodus. The Seder plate is the meal's centerpiece, and each item holds symbolic meaning. Zeroah. The shank bone represents the lamb sacrificed at the Temple of Jerusalem during celebration. Beitzah. An egg also represents the Passover sacrifice, as well as the cycle of life. Charoset. This paste, made of apples, nuts, and wine, resembles the bricks and mortar the Jewish slaves were forced to make. Maror. A bitter herb, usually horseradish, represents the bitterness of slavery in Egypt. Karpas. A leafy vegetable is dipped in salt water to represent the tears of the Jewish people. Chazeret. Another bitter herb, eaten with charoset and matzah. Now that the Seder plate is in order, get ready for the rest of the feast. Happy holiday, or Hag Sameach.
So that's a good idea of what tomorrow is going to bring. So please join us. Okay. Oh, by the way, I'm Yvonne Fowler, and I'm one of the practitioners here. And we will be doing a 2-minute miracle kind of over here on the left side of the sanctuary. So if you got anything on your mind that you want to talk about, please come to see one of us. And that'll be right after service.
Hold on 1 second. There was an announcement that you missed. After service, for a very short amount of time, anybody that is interested or has already signed up for the choir, please remain in the sanctuary and meet with me over here by the sound booth. Just a quick little get together to make sure we're all on the same page. Now we're going to go ahead and play our opening song.
One power, invisible, and you see it everywhere and every day. One power, indescribable, and you speak of it with every word you say. Mysterious until you know the truth. As simple as the love inside of you. Call it God, call it Spirit, call it Jesus, call it Lord, call it Buddha, Baha'u'llah, angels' wings or heaven's door. But whatever name you give it, it's all one power, can't you see? It's the power of the love in you and me. One power, one power, one power, one power. We speak so many languages, different clothing, different colors, different names. The different is only dangerous when we forget that in the heart we're all the same. And we'll remember once we close our eyes to see that such distances were never meant to be. Spirit. Call it Jesus, call it Lord, call it Buddha, Baha'u'llah, Hashem, or heaven's door. It's Muhammad, it's your mind, it's your soul, or it's your sign. It's the universe, it's music, Mother Earth, or Father Time. But whatever name you give it, it's all one power, can't you see? Whatever name you give it, it's the very air we breathe. Oh, it's the power of the love in you and me. One power. Oh, one power. One power is what we are. One power. One power. It's the moment of creation. It's an everlasting peace. It's the freedom of forgiveness. It's the sweetness of release. It's the joy of inspiration. It's the sunshine on your face. It's the birthright of all nations. It's the boundlessness of space. It's the beauty of a baby, the serenity of sleep. It's the anger we abandon, for it's love that's most deep. It's one power. It's one power. What we are is one It's the power of the love that lives forever in you and me. It's the power of the love in you and me.
Do you remember him being here just about a month ago? Fabulous artist. One power. Let's all close our eyes and let this meditative song bring us to our center.
In the silence, there is a sacred place, a secret meeting place. Love is there, and in the silence, where every color blends and every rainbow ends, good is there. In the light now you find that you know peace of mind. And in the silence, your path is paved in gold, and all your dreams unfold. Love is there. Peace is there. Truth is there. God is there.
As we take that deep breath and go within, we know that God is there. We know that we're in the sanctuary, in this sacred place right now. We know that we're with community, and we're with our family and friends. And we know that God is in each and every one of us. And as we sit and listen to the message, we know that it's the message that it's good for us. It's something we need to hear and something that we can use as we go out into the community. And we know the music that is chosen, the words are also part of the service. Words, as we listen to them, we know they have meaning and they help us understand just what life is all about. And we bless the media text to keep us right on schedule and everything flows smoothly. And we know that Reverend Michael's message is again just what we want to hear. I'm so thankful and happy to be here, as I know you are, and so it is.
And so it is. And so I'm working on, or I'm presencing, being comfortable. Being comfortable in the consciousness that I am and where I am and as I am. And Daniel's song, One Power, spoke of that infinite power, that infinite intelligence, and that infinite incredibility as me, as the me that is we, that is one. And so I'm going to ask a question. Part of this teaching, and Yvonne spoke to it in her meditation, is the aspect of awakening, the aspect of awareing, the aspect of ascending. And so as we accept this teaching, not only in our intellectual mind, but into our entire body, that infinity of our body, into all of our cells, into the cells that form our heart structure, into the cells that form our human structure, into the cells that form our skeletal structure. It all comes from cells and cellular. And as we take this teaching in at a cellular level, we become the teaching. We become the love. And as we become the teaching and as we become the love, we come to an energy and a vibration and a calibration of consciousness, which I like to call Youniversal Younity. And that's our talk title. And when we open ourselves up to that consciousness of universal unity, which is beyond the concreteness of me, it's all about me is contracting. And then we expand into it's all about we, which is one of the steps along the way. And then the we moves into the one. And as the we moves into the one, that oneness of universal unity, what I begin to see, what I begin to live, what I begin to breathe, the Spirit is everywhere present. And Yvonne used in the meditation today the words omnipresent, omniscience, and omnipotence, all-knowing, all everywhere present and everywhere powerful. And Spirit shows up in that oneness of power and presence and perfection. And so for me this morning, when we come to notice what we're noticing, and I wouldn't have noticed, Steve was arriving for We Rideshare, and as I went to the front door to greet Steve, the New York Times was at my door. And I bent down to pick it up, and it says, linked by love with Cartier. And it's an ad for Cartier. And maybe we can be linked by love by Cartier. Ernest Holmes says we're open at the top, right? But what I know is we can be linked by love by consciousness. And that consciousness of me to we to one, that consciousness of oneness. And so universal unity, for me, there's a story that speaks perfectly of universal unity. And it kind of reflects this spiritual community and the changes we're going through right now. There was a beautiful monastery in a small country town in Ireland. And within that small village, this monastery, this spiritual center was very important. It was the heart of that town. It was the heartbeat of that town. It was the hearth of that town, the warmth of that town. It was the universal unity of that town. It was the center of the universal unity, which was the glue that held that town together from the individual me to the collective we into that oneness of that spiritual awareness. And life in the monastery was going very, very well. Until one day, one of the monks said to the other monks, I think I'm God. And the other monk said, that can't be, because monk number 2 said, no, I'm God, and monk number 3 said, I'm God. And they began to argue, and dissension took place, and the energy wasn't in the talks, and the energy wasn't right at the center, and all of a sudden the energy wasn't right in the whole town. And so people stopped coming. And the gardens stopped being trimmed and planted, and the windows got dirty, and the candles in the windows at night weren't lit anymore. And so the spiritual energy, this oneness, this connection of this community went away. And one monk one day said, I'm going to go into the woods, right? That's a fairy tale thing. We go into the woods, we go into the desert, and all of that into the woods and into the desert, and consciousness is really going into an inner knowing of ourselves on a better level. And this one monk goes to a lake in the woods, and he sits down and he starts meditating. So what's going to bring the monastery back to life? What's going to bring the monks back to life? What's going to bring the life of spirit back to this town? And he's reflecting, and then he looks into a lake, and all of a sudden he notices all the animals of the forest have surrounded him. And they're silent, and they're lying down by him, but they're surrounding him in love, and he feels their love. And all of a sudden he notices an aura around each animal. And yet the aura around each animal is different. It's not just the aura around the shape of the animal, but it's the color and the size and the hue and the vibrancy and the warmth of that aura. Each one is different. Each one is vibrating. Each one is vital. Each one is the love of spirit in individual form. And he looks down into the lake, he sees his reflection, and there's an aura around him. And that aura is different from the animal auras. It's his unique individual aura. But as he sees his aura, he sees in the reflection in the lake these huge lights appear in the sky. These huge lights, maybe the northern lights. And he sees them in the sky, and the animals, and he look up at this incredible brightness in the sky. And in that brightness, in that silence, in that quietness, in that calmness, he comes to a oneness where he hears a voice that's beyond speaking. He hears a voice that's beyond hearing. He hears a voice that's beyond knowing. And he really hears that voice in the presence of a vibration, and that vibration's within himself. And that vibration, much like an earthquake, began to shake him at the soul level. And he began to shake, and he began to vibrate. And he looked at the animals, and they were peaceful, and all of a sudden they brought him into that peace. The animals brought him into that peace of oneness. And what he heard in a vibrational level, in an inspirational level, not intellectual and not intuition, but an inspirational level, Spirit inspired him. And Spirit said to him, one of you 3 monks is God. And he thought, what if I'm God? 1 in 3 chance. So he went back to the monastery and he shared this message with the other monks. He said, one of us is God. And they thought, 1 in 3 chance I'm God. And so they all started acting like God, and they treated each other like God, and they cleaned the windows, and they planted the gardens, and they fed the animals of the forest who were now coming to graze in the back pasture of this church. And people started coming back, and the candles were lit in the windows at night. And all of a sudden, the brightness and this illumination that he saw in the sky became the illumination and the energy that they felt in the center that went out and spread out into the community and beyond the community. And that was that love of me to we to one, and they all stepped into this monastery. And the message of the story is a message of universal unity. If we all come to act like God and walk like God and talk like God, the God qualities, peace and love and light and harmony and truth. If we walk and talk that way, then we are an individual expression of God. And yet, as I look out here on CSL Beaumont and I look in the mirror in my face this morning, none of us is God. That's the bad news. None of us, not one person here, but all of us are one with God. And that's the distinction, that's the discernment, that's the devotion that Science of Mind brings to each of us. None of us is God in this teaching, but we're all one with God to the degree that we bring that energy, that vibrancy, that silent voice forward, and we speak it and we walk it and we talk it. And so in that oneness of spirit, in that allness of spirit, in that greatness of spirit that those monks found, that presence is in each one of us. And our present is to share the gift of our presence with all of those around us. Now, among the ways we call this presence forward, which that monk called forward in the woods with the animals looking at a lake, is through our power of belief. Scripture says, it's done unto us as we believe. Ernest Holmes shares, and he says this about the power of belief in our teaching. Ernest Holmes says, the study of science of mind, and I invite us to remember to call forth from that inspirational voice within, science of mind is a teaching. It is not a preaching. We don't preach at you the way you should be, the way you should see, the way you should show up. We teach about the Christ consciousness of the way one person showed up, and as one person showed up in a higher attribute of love, so can we all show up. And so Ernest Holmes says the study of the science of mind is a study, and here's the kicker. Here's the kicker of first cause, of first spirit and of first mind, or that invisible essence, that ultimate stuff and infinite intelligence from which everything comes. It's the power back of creation, the thing itself. And that's what that monk at the lake experienced. He experienced that power back of creation, the thing itself that was within the animals. He saw their light and their hues and their colors. He saw his light and his hues and his colors. And then in the reflection in the lake, he saw the light and the hue and the color of that spirit essence, of that infinite intelligence, of that incredible omniscient and omnipresent and omnipotent power, that oneness of that power from which all things are created and all things return. And while we're here, and wherever we go from here, that power is always with us. It's our power of belief that we are one with the infinite. Ernest Holmes shares this, of this invisible essence, of this ultimate stuff, of this infinite intelligence. And he says, everything in the universe responds to the song of the heart. And so what we're talking about in the woods, we were talking about vibration. Mary Morrissey talked about vibrational frequencies in PP3 in our closing session. Everything responds to the song of the heart. And so Maria von Trapp shares this about how she feels about music, about how she believes in music. This is what she believes into music. This is what she feels into music. And this is what she calls forth from music. She says, music acts like a magic key to which the most tightly closed hearts open. And I like to see the word music as the acronym MUSIC. My underlying source is consciousness. And I invite us together to stand and to sing from our hearts, to open our hearts, and to come together in the universal unity of knowing, yes, we can walk and talk and sing as one with the animals. And that's my talk song, my sing-along talk song today, if we could talk with the animals. And so if you will stand, if you feel so inclined, and sing this song. The monk was able to connect with the animals. We're able to connect with the animals. And so we'll sing the song, and Adrian's got it queued up.
If I could talk to the animals, just imagine it, chatting with a chimp and chimpanzee. Imagine talking to a tiger, chatting with a cheetah. What a neat achievement it would be if we could talk to the animals, learn all their languages, maybe take an animal degree. I'd study elephant and eagle, buffalo and beagle, alligator, guinea pig and flea. I would converse in polar bear and python, and I would curse in fluent kangaroo. If people ask me, can you speak rhinoceros? I'd say, of course, can't you? If I conferred with our furry friends, man to animal, think of the amazing repartee. If I could walk with the animals, talk with the animals, run and squeak and squawk with the animals, and they could talk to me. If I consult...
Hey, give yourself a hand. So what that monk shared with us, that the animals can talk with us, and we can talk with them, and we can walk with them, and we can sing with them. So our opening story, if not one of talking to the animals, is one of animals talking to us. It's a story about a Doberman Pinscher, a Saint Bernard, and a cat. And they're all sitting at the pearly gates of heaven waiting to be admitted. And God is seated on his throne, his heavenly throne, the traditional concept of a heavenly throne, not our concept in Science of Mind, but in the traditional with the white beard sitting on his throne. And he asked the animals who were just outside the gate of heaven, he said, before I can admit you to heaven, I need you to admit what your belief is, what your core values are, what your core energy is. And the Doberman speaks up and goes, I believe in love and loyalty to mankind and to other animals. And God says, welcome to heaven. And the St. Bernard says, I believe in protecting the innocent. And God says, welcome to heaven. And the cat says, I believe you're sitting in my chair. I see we have cat owners out here. I see we have cat people in this center. Ernest Holmes says, believe as though you are and you will be. That cat believed that he knew his place, right? And that's part of this teaching, to know our place, to know our heart, to know our soul, to come to know ourselves better. And our talk today is about the power of belief in a universal unity. The power of belief in a universal first cause, and the power of belief in a universal consciousness. Alan Watts says this about universal unity. You and I are all as much continuous with the universe as a wave is to the ocean. In terms of universal unity and that oneness of wave to ocean, it's said that birds do it, bees do it, flowers do it, trees do it, and even educated fleas do it. And what they do is evolve in consciousness. Ernest Holmes says Science of Mind is an evolutionary teaching. It's a teaching that keeps growing. It keeps growing us into a greater knowing of who we are and who we can become, and we are in the process of becoming. And that's the evolutionary process in our teaching. And yet it's not just the evolutionary process in our teaching, it's the evolutionary process of the universe. The universe is always expanding, always growing, always becoming greater than it was the second before. And so in the same way that waves evolve from the oneness of the ocean, so too does the monarch butterfly evolve from its caterpillar cocoon into the consciousness of a butterfly. And yet what's interesting is that in moving through the process of cocoon and caterpillar into the flight of a butterfly, much like the ocean wave and the caterpillar, and we often have no idea or no ideation or no inclination or no insight as to what's evolving on our inside that's recreating our outside. What's evolving in the inside of that cocoon that the caterpillar transforms into a butterfly. We don't know why, and we don't know how, but Science of Mind asks us to ask a high calibration question. That's Mary Morrissey. A high calibration question. Who am I becoming? Who am I becoming? And we don't have to hear an answer like that monk. We'll feel it, we'll know it, we'll see it. We'll see it in the New York Times on our doorstep. So if one or two people will raise your hands, can anyone share where they saw spirit today? Just in one or two words, one sentence, anywhere you saw spirits that you got up this morning. I saw it in, yes, Lois.
When I looked in the mirror this morning.
You're dismissed, class over. You know, I think we're going to leave it right there because
What was it she said? I couldn't hear it online.
when she looked in the mirror this morning, Ernest Holmes will be doing mirror work in the workshop. And Ernest Holmes says life reflects back to us in the mirror the life that we're living. And Lois is just lit up right now. She's lit up like a candle in that monk's church window. So yes, what a great place to see Spirit. What a great place to see Spirit in our mirror reflection. Mark Twain says this of the process of becoming. Becoming is like a butterfly, which when pursued is always beyond our grasp, but which if you will sit down quietly and sit with yourself, that butterfly and becoming may alight upon you. Not something we chase after, it's a place we come from within. It's said that butterflies can't see their wings. They can't see how truly beautiful they are. But all of us can see how beautiful they are, but they can't see it for themselves. And I think what Ernest Holmes invites us to awaken to aware to become one with in universal unity, is to that presence of consciousness where we don't just see it in the New York Times, and we don't just see it in our mere reflection, we see it in the reflection of every face we look at. We see it in each and every person. And that's what practitioner work is about. It's about seeing people and hearing people and being present with people. That's what practitioner work is about. And we're all practitioners here. But to the ability that we can see and feel and hear that oneness of God first in ourselves and then in other people, to that degree we become one with that universal unity. And so what I was asking myself as I was writing this talk, or it was asking me, remember Emerson says, we don't go to thoughts, thoughts come to us. And so if that's accurate and I'm feeling that works for me, then we don't ask questions. Questions come to us and are asked of us by that silent voice at the lake, by that silenceness of the animals, by that silent vibration beyond words that monk felt. And so the question that came to me this morning, and I guess what is ours to do is to ascertain and to discern if we want to answer that question. That's where our power of choice perhaps comes in. And it is what is mine to do. And so in the asking of what is mine to do, I invite you to let drop into you what is yours to do. And then I invite you to let that one thought drop away and let another thought flow in, because thought is a process and evolution is a process of flowing, not hanging on to, not holding our thoughts. How's that working for you? It's the process of letting go of our thoughts and allowing the flowing and the flowering of our thoughts to continue to blossom. And so what is ours to do that came to me this morning is to trust the process. A lot of change going on at this center. Always has been, always will be, but right now, on the surface level and below the surface level, a lot of changes are happening. And you know, it's how we change within the change that transforms our lives. And so when we trust the process, and the process that we're invited to trust in Science of Mind, and I'm invited to trust in every second of ministry, is the process of evolutionary transformation. Because where I was in consciousness yesterday, where I was in consciousness last Sunday, where I'll be in consciousness 2 Sundays from now after a week's vacation in Mexico, which I'm looking forward to starting on Saturday, will be very different from where I am now. But much like the wave and the butterfly, if you can picture those, don't just think of them. Often when someone says think of a bed, we think of the word bed instead of picturing a bed. Often when somebody says home, we picture our home rather than seeing into that heaven, the home of heaven in our heart. And so I invite you to picture into that wave and to feel into that wave, that vibration of the wave and that quietness of the wave and that power of the wave and that presence of the wave and that all-knowing of the wave knows without knowing. It doesn't have to do anything to become a wave. It is part of that ocean that is always becoming, always evolving, always in motion. And that wave just lets its wave formation become. And much like the butterfly, that formation of moving from caterpillar into butterfly is something that it allows, is something that it permits, is something that makes welcome. It is not something that it makes happen. So our wordsmith today, there we go. Our wordsmith today is because. Ernest Holmes says the power of belief is one of the keys to opening that magic of our heart. And he also speaks of a universal unity of first cause. It's not because, but it's the because. So if we take the word because it happened because of the government, it happened because of my checking account, it happened because I had a cold, it happened because the other driver ran the light, it happened because, when we move from it happened because into it happened because I am the cause, that I wasn't extra careful at that light, I could have been extra careful and the accident wouldn't have happened. Yes, maybe the other driver ran the light. Maybe you had the right of way. But beyond that, we know that good driving isn't about who has the right of way, but who gives way to that higher consciousness of spirit. In our teachings, in fundamental teachings, they give you the right of way to believe their way. But I feel the right of way in Science of Mind is the right of way to give way to the way that's right for you, to the way it feels right for you, the way that feels right in your heart, the way that feels right in your soul, the way that feels right in what you're doing, how you're being, and how you're showing up. So I think Science of Mind is the right of way that gives way to the because and makes way for the because, makes way for us to be the cause, to become the first cause of co-creative consciousness that creates our life according to the conditions that show up. So when Lois said, she saw spirit in the mirror, I saw it in the Cartier ad in the New York Times. Wherever you choose to see spirit is a reflection of how you're showing up as spirit. Because you won't see spirit out there until you are present with spirit in here. You will not see spirit out there until you are present with spirit in here. You will not see spirit out there until you are present with spirit in here. And that begins with first cause. And you know, I was thinking this morning about first cause. It's usually that first thought that comes to our head, that intuitive thought, that inspirational thought that we, oh no, I shouldn't go with the first thought that comes to my mind. I'm going to outthink this thought. You can't outthink spirit. You can't outrun spirit. You can't outcreate spirit, but you can run with spirit, and you can create with spirit, and you can be present with spirit, and you can be one with that first cause of spirit and create the first cause of that consciousness of the life you would love living. That's a life of spontaneous health. That's a life of unbridled abundance. That's a life of a spiritual connection, which the monk came to in the forest, that he came to from the within of himself, that light within himself that connected with that celestial light above, that universal unity of all light is one light. And I like to see the word light, L-I-G-H-T, as love is God's healing truth. That's Science of Mind. Love is God's healing truth. And if it's God's truth, and we're one with God to the degree that we call it forward, to the degree that we unshutter our light, to the degree that we let our light shine, that's the degree that we have spontaneous healing. That's the degree that we have creative explosions of expression. Not timid expressions, but creative explosions of the expression of who we are. We creatively explode musically. We creatively explode physically. We creatively explode consciously. We creatively explode in that connection with spirit. That's an explosion from me to we to one. It's not a process. There's a place beyond the process, and that's the presence of the explosion of the expressions of spirit. And what sparks that explosion? What sparks that explosion that becomes the flame of our expression, that becomes the passion fire of the life we live? Eckhart Tolle, in his book, A New Earth, speaks of the evolutionary transformation of the emergence of flowers and plants and of animals and of humans on earth. The evolutionary transformation of emergence. What a perfect statement for Science of Mind. The evolutionary transformation of emergence. And I love seeing the word emergency How many of us create emergencies in our life, and we know when an emergency is showing up in our life because we create mama drama trauma around it? So if you're feeling mama drama trauma, you're creating an emergency, a human emergency in the material realm. But when we come from that explosive expression of consciousness in the moment, we're feeling mama drama trauma and the emergency of the material plane, we move into the metaphysical divinity of truth, from mama drama trauma to the metaphysical divinity of truth, that all emergencies are spiritual opportunities to emerge and see. That's what Eckhart Tolle is talking about in his teachings and in his books. Do you know what the New York Times reviewed his book when it was getting ready to be published, and they said it was trash, there was nothing here, the guy was out of his mind, it was empty, it was hollow, they just totally trashed the book. Whoever reviewed it just did not connect on that level, and that's okay. But don't let anybody else trash your spirituality. Don't let anybody else trash who you are. Don't let anybody else trash your dreams. Too much trashing going on. Too much trashing going on out there. And so, as we move from human emergencies into spiritual emergencies, Eckhart Tolle says we come to a critical threshold, and I like to call that the tipping point, like a seesaw, where we tip from we're into the mama drama trauma, into where we tip into neutral until we go into that metaphysical divinity of truth, that higher truth that all is unfolding for a higher good. So I like to see it as a tipping point and a turning point. Turn away from that which you don't want, move in the direction of that which you want. Pivot from what you don't want, pivot to what you do want. Pivot in presence. So turning point, tipping point, and trusting point. Trust spirit. Get to that tipping point of consciousness where you trust in your own sight. You trust in your own spirituality. You trust in that explosive expression of spirit that's developing as you, and that vitality that's expressing as you. And so the divinity within our humanity, as we become aware of it, we move from me to we to one. We move from the flowers, which we are, into the flowering that we are becoming, into the flowing and the knowing of the conscious shift, the conscious choice, and the conscious unity of me to we to one. And that's our talk theme. Me to we to one. That's part of that spark that is explosively inviting us to express from our divine self and not our human self. And yet in this teaching, me to we to one, it's all one together. It's our humanity within our divinity and the divinity within our humanity that brings and creates around an entirely new reality beyond anything we've seen before, beyond anything we felt before, beyond anything we've tasted before, beyond anything we've touched before. And Eckhart Tolle talks about the flowering of that first plant. All of the conditions had to come together for that flower to bloom. And then when one flower bloomed, there was another, and another, and another, and another. And the image that just came to my head was like popping popcorn. One kernel pops, and then another kernel pops, and another kernel pops, and pop, 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 pop. So I think science of mind is like popcorn. I mean, it's like flowers, but it's like pop, 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 pop. This insight, this aha, this aliveness, this awareness. Oh my gosh, I saw it in the New York Times. Oh my gosh, I saw it in the mirror. Oh my gosh, I see it everywhere. That's oneness. I see it in the mirror. I see it in the New York Times. I see it everywhere. That's oneness. So our me to we one story, and that's our theme, me to we to one, that oneness of universal consciousness. It's a story about a small Alaska town that shifted from the me of the problem, mama, drama, trauma, to the we of the possibility. Spirit is omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent, all-knowing, ever-present, and all-powerful. That's spirit, and that's the possibility that we come from in spirit. This shifts us in to the oneness of universal unity that we are, like all of the popcorn popping simultaneously. It's about a small town, Deering, Alaska. True story. And the was out of commission. And a plane needed to land, and a medvac plane needed to land to take a small child to a hospital. It was a life or death situation, and the runway was closed due to snow. And so the small town, this plane had to land, and this plane had to take off, or this child, a member of this community, a member of this community, remember the monks who argued amongst themselves? They had a chance to argue. It's not possible. It can't happen. The snow, we can't go against Mother Nature, right? It's not nice to fool Mother Nature. It's not about fooling Mother Nature. It's about having the faith in your nature as one with Spirit. It's not about fooling Mother Nature. It's about having the faith in your nature as one with Spirit. This town moved from me to we to one, and in a church parking lot next to the runway, they were able to get the vehicles in. They cleared the church parkway so the ambulance could bring the child there. Then they moved their headlights and their local plows to the runway, and they cleared the runway. Impossible. Impossible if you're coming from mama, drama, trauma. Impossible if you're coming from an emergency situation, but absolutely possible if you're willing to emerge and see that we move from me to we to one. Anything is possible. The monks did it. This Alaska town did it. They cleared the parking lot so people could gather. They cleared the runway. The medvac plane came in. The ambulance brought the child. The child went on the plane. The child was flown to a hospital and survived because of this town moving from me to we to one. The pilots said when they saw what was happening, they couldn't believe what they saw. In the midst of a 100-year storm, there were hundreds of people out there clearing the runway. And he said it changed his life forever. And then as they landed, the snow came back in. He said, I don't think we're going to be able to take off. And the people of Deerfield, Alaska cleared it again. And what's amazing about this story and where this dovetails, right? Spirit dovetails with us. Spirit dovetails. When you're willing to open your clenched fist and your closed fingers and you open them up, it said if we reach 1 inch towards Spirit, Spirit will reach 1,000 miles to reach us. If we open our heart just a little bit more, Spirit will open its heart all the way to us. If we're willing to trust into our soul, not into Mother Nature, but into the nature and the nourishing and the Mother Nature of our soul, of love and goodness and kindness, and to trust into it a way we've never trusted. If we come from that and we live from that, then that's what we see and we be and we become. And so, as that plane took off, the people of that Alaska town who came to light the runway with their hundreds of cars and with their local snowplows, as the plane took off, they looked and the northern lights came out in the middle of a snowstorm. And they said the northern lights and the sky had never been brighter. What did the monk at the lake see? As he began to see the brightness of his aura and the brightness of the animals and the brightness of the sky, that luminosity, that illuminosity, that illumination is the movement from me to we to one, from human emergencies to spiritual emergencies, and that's the oneness of Spirit. Our following story and our closing story, and this is our Science of Mind principle today, is oneness, Youniversal Younity, our talk title, Oneness. And the following story is about the oneness of the light of the love in our hearts. How do we send that out? How do we send out that light of love in our hearts? How do we send that out? You know, a lighthouse sends out its beacon. It doesn't think about it. That's a lighthouse's duty. That's what that lighthouse has been regulated to do and designed to do. And so I guess what we're asking of Spirit today, we're asking of Spirit to invite us to make welcome the question, what is mine to do? How do I shine my light? Where am I to shine my light? Where does my light shine from? And there's a story that's not my talk, but I'm going to do this really quickly. Story about a lighthouse on a rocky cliff and a great big naval ship. I mean really big, like the biggest in the U.S. fleet. And if it isn't as big as what's in the Soviet fleet, then we're going to build a bigger one tomorrow. And if they build a bigger one, then we're going to build a bigger one. You know, but this was the biggest one in our fleet. And the captain was like, you know, we can go through anything. We can weather any storm. Nothing detours us from our direction. And so he's plowing ahead in a storm, and there's a light ahead, and he says to his co-pilot, he said to his co-captain, stay on course. And he says, yeah, but that boat looks pretty big ahead of us. It's smaller. Their light's not as big, but it's smaller. Yeah, well, our light's brighter and we're bigger, so stay on course. So they stay on course, and they stay on course. And all of a sudden, the radio lights up, and it says, please, go to starboard, and we'll go to port. Go to starboard now. And the captain said, nobody telling me to go to starboard. I'm the biggest ship in the ocean. Nobody going to tell me which way to go or to get off my course. I'm going for my course. And finally, the radio comes alive and says, you need to go to starboard now, because I'm a lighthouse, and you're going to run aground on the biggest pile of rocks in Massachusetts if you don't. So how often do we see the light and we refuse to yield the right of way to the light of Spirit? How much are we invested in being right that we are unwilling to yield the right of way to the light of Spirit? How's that working for us as a planet? How's that working for us individually? How's that working for the people on this planet? How's it working? It could work better. That's his teaching. So our following story is about oneness. It's a story about the oneness of the light and the love in our hearts, and how do we shine that light? How do we receive that light? How do we be that light? How do we see that light in the morning and let that light be the light we reflect to the hungry child in our neighborhood? And they're here. To the child who's not getting a proper education, and they're here in this community. How do we shine our light to that child who is not being told to express his creative ability because we have to cut art and crafts budgets at the school? We have to have 40 people in a classroom because we don't have enough teachers. So where do we shine that light in those conditions? Matilda Handley, right from the mouths of babes, from the mouths of children, Matilda said this. She was 10 years old, girl from Britain. She wanted to write a letter to her departed grandparents and came up with the idea of installing mailboxes at cemeteries so people would have a way to write to their loved ones who had passed. Because she wanted to connect with them. She wanted to write a letter, and she didn't know where to send it. So she created a network at 3,000 cemeteries across England and set up post boxes. She said yes to the light of Spirit, right? She didn't go to the emergency of the human arm, I'm missing my grandparents so much. She went to the emergency. How do I shine my light? How do I shine my light that my grandparents gave to me, that I want to connect and keep that light of my grandparents shining for the light of my grandchildren and their children and their children? How do I keep it shining? And she put mailboxes, and they say they're now getting over 3,000 letters a day delivered to these cemetery mailboxes from people who are writing letters to their loved ones. The monks saw the light in the lake, in the sky, in the oars of the animals. People of town in Alaska became the light for the runways, the light of truth. And Matilda Handy, 10 years old, became the light. And she says this, I lifted up my heart in gratitude for the beautiful bridges of love that bind us together in love. And so I chose to put mailboxes in cemeteries. And that has raised my consciousness from it's all about me wanting to write my grandparents, the we of other people who wanted to, into the oneness of that connection, of that light that's forever present. I lift up my heart in gratitude for the beautiful bridges that bind us together in love. So what's our bridge? We asked a couple weeks ago, what's our cup of coffee? Remember? What's our cup of coffee? So today I ask us, and I'm included in that us, the me to we to one. What's our bridge? What's Michael's bridge for me to bridge to the we? And what is the we of this community's bridge to the one? What's our bridge? What's our bridge? And so Robert Frost said our bridge is a yellow wood. And he said this, 2 roads diverged in a yellow wood. He said our bridge is a yellow wood. 2 roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveler, long I stood and looked down, one as far I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. And then I took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that, the passing there had worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubt if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and I took the one less traveled by. And that has made all the difference. This teaching is a path less traveled. Doing this work at the level we're doing the work at this center is a path less traveled. And being the consciousness of Matilda and the lighthouse and those people in Alaska, it's a path less traveled. You know, my hope and my desire and my love and my passion and my purpose and my presence at this center is that this be a center of a road less taken, but a path that we all take together. Where does that path lead? Where does that path of me to we to oneness lead? Where does being the bridge to oneness and kindness and love? Where does the bridge from our soul to our heart to our lives? Where does that bridge lead? Dr. Seuss says it leads to a language of love, the language of universal unity, the language of becoming who you already are. So 5 points of universal unity is seen from the perspective of a cat, the cat in the hat, Dr. Seuss. So we began a cat who knew its position was on the throne, right? I believe you're in my seat, to the cat in the hat. So from the perspective of a cat who knew its place to a cat in the hat, 5 perspectives of the language of love, the language of universal unity, the language of moving from me to we to one. Dr. Seuss, the cat in the hat, says this: today, you are you, and that is truer than true. There's no one alive who is youer than you. Why fit in when you were born to stand out? You have brains in your head. You have feet in your shoes. You can steer yourself in any direction you choose. And our steering wheel inside the mind is prayer. Be who you are. That cat, I believe you're in my seat. And say what you feel. Because those who mind do not matter. And those who matter don't mind. Today I shall behave as this is the day I will be remembered. And for me, it's about the remembering and the remembrance of the light of love, the light of truth, the light of oneness and kindness and goodness and graciousness and givingness and receivingness. It's the light of love that moves us from me to we to one. The light of love that puts mailboxes in cemeteries. It's the light of love that embraces ourself in the light of seeing spirit in the mirror before us. What's our bridge? This week I invite us to live in the question, what's my bridge? What's my bridge? That's our talk, and so we'll close with an affirmation. We affirm, yes, we affirm the energy of this talk. We affirm the presence of this center. We affirm that energy of Matilda and lighthouses and cats and monks meditating. And so I'll read it first, and then I'll invite us to say it together. Infinite presence, today I give thanks for my soul connections, for my soul companions, for my soul consciousness that raises, praises, and lifts me up in the universal unity of love. So I invite us to read that together from the light in our soul, the light of love in our heart, and from the light of the presence that we truly, truly already are. Infinite presence. Today I give thanks for my soul connections, for my soul companions, for my soul consciousness that raises, praises, and lifts me up in the universal unity of love. And together we say, and so it is. So ends our talk. If no one today has told you that they love you, I love you. CSLB loves you. This teaching loves you. And if you need any prayer, we don't want you to leave with anything heavy on your heart. We'll have prayer practitioners here at the end of the session. So be well. Stay conscious. Namaste. And so the prayer, thank you. And so the prayer we pray today is the prayer that drops in. So I invite us to find that empty space, that gap, that abyss, that absence of knowing in which the presence of growing takes place. That absence of knowing in which, as Mary Morrissey says, the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. The absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. The absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. For in that absence is the allness and the oneness of that explosive evolution of spirit, inviting us to build a bridge from our soul to our heart, to our lives, to the lives of others. So this prayer, Spirit, for myself is a prayer of bridge, a prayer of bridges and bridging, a prayer of bridges that span consciousness, bridges that expand that consciousness beyond the stars and beyond the galaxies and beyond the known of the cosmic consciousness into that oneness beyond, that great absence beyond, that great allness beyond, that great almighty beyond, that almighty that is the mightiness of the allness of the truth of who we are, the truth of who we came here to become, of the truth of who we are becoming at CSLB, not just here on a Sunday, not just here in a workshop, not just here on a movie night, but which we are becoming in every day and every breath of our life wherever we go. So knowing that the life of this center is the spiritual life and the spiritual light of truth. Knowing that truth and feeling that truth and being that truth. I invite each of us and all of this week to shine the light of the truth of the bridge of knowing that we each and all are. And together I invite us to say, and so it is. And so it's now our time of giving. I'll ask our ushers to come forth. And I invite us to read this together. I give and receive freely and generously with an open heart and an open mind. The universe responds to me in kind. I know that my beloved community is richly blessed, and so it is. If you're one of our online community members, you can text to give at 951-420-6909. You can go to cslbeaumont.org. And again, our text to give, you can do it by phone right here, 951-420-6909.
Gratitude before me.
And if you know this, I invite you to stand. It kind of gets moved. Oh, and we also have, Marcia says we have a credit card reader, so we can take debit cards and credit cards as well. That's new. So, gratitude for me, gratitude below me, gratitude within me, gratitude all around me. I'm so grateful. 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 Gratitude before me. Gratitude behind me. Gratitude all around me. And what just came to me, what dropped in for me, gratitude. What a wonderful bridge. What a wonderful bridge gratitude is. So now I believe it's time for Circle Up and to sing our way out of this service. I'm going to sneak in here. All right. So let's just know together that something wonderful happened here today. And that something wonderful is something that we called oneness, we named oneness, and we felt into that oneness. And in that oneness and that goodness and that grandness and kindness, we came to realize that each of us and all of us are bridges. We're bridges from the finite to the infinite, from the seen to the unseen, from the unknown to the known, to that unknown and unseen invisibility of love. And what we built here today was a bridge of love. And together I invite us to say, and so it is.
In my eyes, in my mind, in my heart, in my soul, in my life, I have been